Thanks for stopping by and nerding out with me about MPCs and talking about gear more than making music. Partly it's because I work all day and I'm tired by the time I get home, but I still have enough time and energy to think about them or talk about them a bit. So, yeah, the 60 Mark II and the 3000. Similarities, differences, my likes, dislikes. Physically, obviously the Mark I would be a lot more similar in looks to the 3000. That said, it's a pretty similar footprint from what I understand. So when we look at the size, I got a live down here we can check out later just for reference, just to compare. But when you look at the size, look at the size difference between the 62 and the 3000. A 2000 XL would come right around here, I think. Yeah, about there. Close to there, if not. And we have this much more. So, having used the 2000 XL, 1000, 5000, having used those, I was just used to a different standard and expectation from a button. And this is going to sound really geeky or ridiculous, maybe. It sounds silly. But the buttons on an XL or a 2000 or all the other ones, they just don't stack up compared to the buttons on the 60 and the 3000. These are by far the most professional feeling buttons on any machine, any MPC that I've used. These are really nice buttons. I find them a little spongy. It probably has to do with my age, and I read that Roger Lynn actually modeled this around a tape machine. So to me, this looks very familiar. This would be the kind of buttons that I would typically see in an 80s, 90s video studio. Same kind of video controllers and on interfaces and things like that. So I love the buttons. The data wheels, I like this compared to the 2000 where you put your finger in the indent and swirl. I like this. I like the metal button for the volume on the 60. I see on the 3000 they went with the pots and knobs that are similar to the XL, the Classic, and that kind of stuff. The sliders, I'm not a big fan of these sliders. I think this is a really strange choice. Maybe they were limited with what they could pick at the time. This is one of the few things that I do like the XL and the Classic over the 3000 and the 60. The 1000 has a very similar kind of fader knob or whatever you call that. So these ones I'm not digging them as much. I think I'd prefer. It doesn't feel smooth. It feels very challenging, like rough, resistant. It's resistant to easy movement. Maybe it's just this particular fader, although I know it works very well and it sounds decent. So maybe it's not. But they're both like that. They're both. Maybe they need replacing. I don't know. But look at these big clunky buttons. They're just. Listen to this. They're just right. Such a satisfying feeling, like you are in control of a studio when you're pressing. This is how I feel. I feel I'm in control of a studio of sorts when I have this type of interface. The other thing is and they're pretty much equal on that. I pretty much enjoy each of these machines in terms of navigating, naming, doing the editing with the start-stop, like doing the envelope. They're very similar. I'm kind of starting to like the 3000 layout better. It's really spaced out, which is nice. The cursors are not they're much in a much different place on the 3000 here than they are on the 60. There's still the plus minus right above the wheel. That's nice. That's not in the XL or the 2000. Jeez, excuse me. So the 60 has 2 banks. The 3000 has 4 banks. I don't know with Vilexi if there's more than 4 banks. I think there's still only 4 banks. This has OS 3.11 on it. So, and I've had one with Vilexi on it before, but I forget. Or does this have a Vilexi? I don't know what they're called. Anyway, you know what I mean. The layouts of the pads being on the left, I like that. Doesn't really matter to me. I know they're switched on the 2000 and the XL. They're on the other side. That doesn't bother me that they're on the left. In terms of working on this machine and looking at the screen, yeah, let me just do a little sidetrack on these screens. These original screens are terrible. Yeah. And here's a 3000. It's just it's brighter, but it's just as illegible. So I have to get those replaced. But the original screens just don't cut it. So the ergonomics of this, the layout, the user interface, it's pretty solid. There's nothing really strange feeling about it to me. The pads are very responsive. They remind me a lot of the Classic. The 3000, I don't think there's anything awkward on it either, except I find the reach to these buttons. Excuse me, I was around a lot of dust today, so. But these buttons seem, it sounds ridiculous, okay? It sounds goofy. You're saying, well, that's 3 inches, 4 inches difference in how far you have to reach. What are you talking about? But to me, it still feels awkward. Maybe I'll get very used to it eventually. But I actually prefer how tight the 60 is with how it's all crammed in here. I like that. The build quality, again, the Mark 1 would be a better comparison for the 3000. But the 60s, it's okay. It's definitely got a cash register appeal. I kind of like that about it. I would also like or would rather have a Mark 1. But you know what? I don't know that it's worth keeping the 60 for me. I love the sound. What I don't love, and I read this before buying it, but it didn't really sink in, how people say there's no filters. And I'm like, well, who cares? There's filters outside your unit. I can put a filter on the external sound source, right? I can pass it through a filter. But for some reason, it's not as versatile as a machine without filters in it. So while I do like the sound, it's definitely got a hip-hop flavor to me anyway, because it's got that more dull sound to it. What it doesn't do is sample at variable sample rates. It's super, super basic, which is cool, but it's also a bit of a drawback. Whoops, I just backed into something. So what I'm noticing now is that I actually, like I mentioned earlier, I had a 3000 before, and it just didn't do it for me for some reason. I just wasn't into it, so I sold it. But I got this one again recently, just after getting this, and this has so much more thump to it. It's so much more high fidelity. Now, if you're looking at this for its lo-fi use, then that's a benefit. But overall, I guess what I'm saying is I prefer this sound a lot more. While I probably will miss this sound, this is the sound that I do prefer in an MPC. Now, I will be selling this, I'm pretty sure. And what I'll be doing is buying an S900 probably, and then getting the new OS for it so that it has filtering and maybe time stretch too. I don't even know, but that or a 950. So basically, I'll be selling this and getting a 950 or 900. And the 950 and the 900 have filters on them and a lot more editing capabilities and variable sample rates. And to me, that's really what I want. I want to be able to sample at a much more lo-fi rate, sorry. And that really, I really don't need this if I'm using a 900 or a 950 in conjunction with this 3000. So they both still have floppies. I'm on the fence about getting, well, like I said, I'm selling the 60, so I'm not going to upgrade that, but I'm on the fence about getting an emulator for this or SCSI to SD. SCSI to SD has been known to fail, and I don't know how often that is or if that's been resolved. And the other thing I don't like is how it's going to stick out the back of my MPC. It's going to, these things are deep enough already. Let me just touch on that for a second. These things are so deep that I can't put them on a regular shelf with my other stuff. I don't know what to really do with them. I might have to buy some kind of rolling stand or something for them. But they're just so massively deep that if I put a SCSI to SD on here somewhere on the back, because if I'm understanding them correctly, it's a little module that goes on the back, they stick out like this. But you know what? Now that I'm looking at it, that's no different than the cords. So I just answered my own question. I'm definitely going with SCSI to SD because it's supposed to load way faster than the floppy emulator, which makes sense. It's painfully slow, especially in the MPC 60. And yeah, so there we go. That's cool. I just worked that out. And I think you can do it for the 60 as well if it has a SCSI board, but I don't think this one does. So, but this 3000 certainly has it. So there we go. The weight of them, they're pretty beefy. They're very heavy, especially that monster. I can't imagine what the Mark 1's like. It must be so heavy because it has a metal chassis as well. The faceplate here on the 60 is metal. The 3000, metal all the way around. Rubberized side wings here for, I don't know, flying through hip hop land or something. And all metal otherwise, except for, some buttons and stuff like that. Tilty screen, which is delicious. I like that a lot. Wish it would tilt a bit more, but that's all right. Then we look at the back here. The backs, rather. They're really quite similar. Both have 4 MIDI out, 2 MIDI in. Both have stereo out, headphones out. Headphones are on the back. The jack is on the back of the 3000. Jack is on the front of the 60. They're both made in Japan. See that? The differences I see are the 60 has echo. Where is echo? There it is. So what that is that's an effects send return, but you don't have to use the out. You can just use it as an instrument through. So you can pass a signal through it. So if I was using another drum machine or MPC, I could actually pass a stereo signal through this. It's not going to be 12-bit if you do that because it's not sampling it. It's only passing it through the circuits. So will it warm it up? I guess. I don't know. The 3000 has digital connector. I don't know that I will use that. I don't think so. Both have the switches, foot switches, and the 60 has metronome out. The 60 is pretty rad. Both of the record ins have the gain switches, low, mid, high. It's kind of strange to me. I don't really understand why they didn't put a potentiometer there instead, but perhaps they did that because they picked 3 of the most ideal settings and engineered their recording to that. On the 60, it's mono in. You can do a faux stereo with the 60 with the new OS, but the 3000 is true 60 if you, or true stereo if you want it. So there you go, two beautiful machines. I could probably go on for another hour just nerding out about them, but yeah, thanks for watching and see you next time.